Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to...
Okay, how is everybody? Happy Sunday. Hello, Riverdale. Hello, Darkside. Hello, Vicky. Wanted to talk about Kouri Richins' trial. We're headed into closing arguments. Opening statements. I'm going to review some of the opening statements today. We're headed into closing arguments tomorrow. I think it's really important for the state, who presented so much evidence in this case, to really pull it all together. And the challenge that they have, and it's a challenge in these kind of cases, people tend not to poison people. So if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, Kouri Richins is on trial for attempted murder of her husband, Eric Richins, also the father of their 3 boys. This is took place in Utah. Eric Richins owned a masonry company with his friend Cody Wright. Kouri Richins, who's on trial, had a business which was losing money at a rapid rate, flipping houses. So what prosecutors maintain Kouri Richins did was she attempted to murder her husband on Valentine's Day in 2022. Eric Richins lived through that murder attempt and told his friends, I think my wife's trying to poison me. So the first attempt came when, according to prosecutors, when Kouri Richins got a sandwich from a diner and left it for her husband. Eric Richins luckily didn't eat all of it. But on March 3rd, 2022, prosecutors allege, and here's the problem, that Kouri Richins poisoned her husband with fentanyl, and they can't say how she did it because evidence was really not collected from the scene. The glasses. Had she put this in a Moscow Mule that she says they both enjoyed? We don't know. Did she put it in his food? Did she administer it to him another way? There was no injection marks, but somehow he ingested 5 times the lethal limit of fentanyl. So with crimes like this, when people say, well, there's no evidence that she did it, I'd say, what evidence would you expect? Would you expect to see, and I think it's a fair argument to say, well, I expect to see some trace amounts of fentanyl in the glass in the home that they shared. Well, good luck. I mean, if you're any kind of criminal, you would think you would get rid of that, but good luck. Or I'd see trace amounts of fentanyl in the drain That was never checked. But his hydrocodone bottle from 2016 was placed near the scene, and certainly that was suspicious. We'll look at the body cam footage of the problem of Kouri Richins denying that Eric Richins had a drug problem. But the defense seems to be, well, he occasionally used pot gummies for sleep, so anything's possible. Maybe he had a hidden fentanyl problem that he kept from Kouri Richins. Unlikely in that he was opiate naive and had no opiates in his system. I guess you could argue that he had a day where he wanted to blow off some steam and secretly took these. Where he got them, we don't know, but we do know that Kouri Richins was obtaining pills. Here's another problem for the prosecution. The drug dealer, Robert Crozier, says, I didn't deal fentanyl. I dealt oxycodone. People were really uptight about fentanyl. I would have never dealt fentanyl. So what to know about the fentanyl in this case is, I think it's really important, is that there are two kinds of fentanyl. There's the prescription strength, government approved, pharmaceutically manufactured fentanyl that you get maybe in, say, a fentanyl patch or lollipop. Then there's the illicitly produced fentanyl. That's what we have in this case. That was made by basically criminals and pressed into pills made to look like prescription oxycodone pills, sometimes even with the maker's mark on it. But when I was screening this charge conference, the defense was always really aware that Robert Crozier may be the best thing they had for their defense. So Robert Crozier, the drug dealer. And even before we ever got to trial, they were releasing stories like this. This is from KSL. Link is in the description of this. Everything that I'll show you, there's links in the description of the episode if you want to go check it out yourself. Kouri Richins' house cleaner was not given fentanyl, defense claims. This is October 2nd, 2025. New court filings from Kouri Richins' attorneys claim Richins couldn't have purchased the fentanyl that she allegedly used to kill her husband from her cleaning lady because that woman didn't have any fentanyl to give her. If the state cannot place fentanyl in the hands of Richins, the state has no case. Right? This is the big issue here. Did the state prove their case? If the state cannot place fentanyl in the hands of Richins, and let's not forget that Carmen Laubers, the middle woman, wasn't a great witness. She claims her memories fried from these kind of drugs, which is kind of hard to believe. She got caught in a zillion lies on the stand. But there also is communication between the two. We know that the state has no case. Mr. Crozier's statement doesn't just poke holes in their case, it throws a grenade. For those in the back, it throws a grenade into the middle of it, leaving them nothing but speculation and conjecture, getting them nowhere near the realm of proving their case beyond a reasonable doubt. According to a motion filed Thursday in 3rd District Court, Richins, a Camas mother and former real estate agent, is charged with aggravated murder and attempted murder, 3 first-degree felonies, in addition to other crimes for allegedly killing her husband. Those other crimes are all fraud crimes related to life insurance she took out on Eric Richins before she murdered him. Charges say that on February 14th, 2022, she slipped fentanyl into his food, making him sick, and then successfully gave him a fatal dose of fentanyl on March 4th. But they don't say how, right? And when it was time for Richard Crozier to take the stand. I want to show you how he walked into court. Hold on one second. One minute. We'll get to his testimony in a second. But look at him walking into court like the biggest dirtbag. Listening on podcast, here's a guy strutting into court, leading from his potbelly stomach in an untucked button-down dress shirt that's light pink, sneakers and black pants, bald. Looks like pretty short guy. But look how he swaggers into to take his oath. Check this out.
If you would step in front of Brittany, we'll get you sworn in.
Step up here.
I think this is a little bit fast. Hold on. Let's go back just a few seconds so you can see it in real time.
Step up here.
In front of Brittany.
If you'll please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
So the defense didn't even put on a defense. They made a lot of promises and opening statements of one witness who talked to Eric Richins that night, Mr. Wagner. He never took the stand for either side, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But here comes this issue. So he says that he would never have sold this fentanyl. He only sold oxycodone, not Oxycontin, which is basically the same thing. It's just an extended release, meaning it releases slower. Fentanyl. And that when the police came to take his statement and to give him immunity in this case, he was in jail withdrawing from opiates.
County detectives on May.
So here's where he talks about detectives coming in to see him. Take a listen.
The 4th, 2023.
Vaguely. I remember that I was in jail. I hadn't been there very long. I was on a lot of drugs at that time, so I was detoxing from those drugs. And I remember going in a conference room and speaking with them, but I don't really recall a lot of the discussion.
Which jail?
Davis County Jail.
It would be interesting to note if Davis County Jail treats opiate withdrawal. Some jails will treat opiate withdrawal, just because it's very uncomfortable. It's not deadly unless you have some other kind of pre-existing condition. Seldom deadly, let's put it like that. But usually if you're giving any kind of testimony, which including sworn testimony or signing sworn statements, they make sure that you're in your right mind. So that you can't make arguments like this, that you were withdrawing, and that he says that when he signed off on everything that he said, that there were a lot of mistakes in what he signed off on. Spoiler alert.
Do you recall whether they asked you if Carmen asked for blues specifically or fentanyl specifically?
I have read the report, so I know that they did, but I don't remember them saying that to me.
Okay, and by report, do you mean a transcript of their interview?
So when Carmen is mentioned, the Carmen that they're talking about is Carmen Lauber, the middle woman who was Kouri Richins' housekeeper. She cleaned these houses that Kouri Richins flipped. and got $7.5 million in debt flipping.
Yeah.
So you know from reading a transcript of their interview that they asked you whether Carmen asked for blues or fentanyl on one hand or oxys on the other hand?
Yes.
Do you recall how you responded to that question?
Not right offhand. I think I said something to the extent of that I thought they were, I didn't know if they were fentanyl or Roxy's, but whatever she asked for is what she got.
Do you recall your answer to that specific question of theirs, whether she asked for blues specifically or fentanyl on one hand or oxys on the other hand?
No.
If I were to show you that transcript again, would you?
Okay, so blues are 30 milligram immediate release oxycodone, also sold under the brand name Roxycodone. Very desirable in for addicts, and that they can crush them, and they can get immediate release of the substance all at once. That's meant to release immediately, but not immediately in your digestive system.
You able to recall?
Oxycodone is extended release, and fentanyl is a very powerful, shorter acting opiate.
I mean, I'm not going to remember it, but I can.
Would that help
see
you
it. Like,
refresh it?
I can see like what it says. I
Okay.
mean, yeah. So, but as far as remembering it, that was 3 years ago, or however many years ago, and I was in a rough state at the time that I had that conversation with them.
Scott, can we bring?
I don't know about you, but withdrawal or not withdrawal, I mean, withdrawal would make you seem like you'd remember it better because you'd be so uncomfortable. It'd be like a traumatic memory. It would be burned in your brain. Secondly, the drugs that he sold Carmen Lauber ultimately killed Eric Richins. How many murder cases has he been involved in? Really? 3 years ago? It's that forgettable, the time the police visited you in jail? Seriously? Hard to believe. This is just some of his hard to believe testimony.
Bring up for the witness, please, 8-46, Tango. Moving too fast for you.
So they're having him read his statement.
Responded to the investigator's question of whether she wanted blues or fentanyl specifically or oxys.
Yeah, but it says that. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So how did you respond to that?
Can I take this witness on board for just one moment?
Not at the moment. You gotta let me answer that question.
Wait, Park.
Yes.
Poor Eric Richins' family. I mean, you can see Gene, Eric Richins, and there's the lead detective, Jeff O'Driscoll, in the blue tie, leaning back. And there's Eric Richins' father, Gene, closing his eyes, and he's with his head, his fist holding up his cheek now. He can't believe that justice, what we have to offer in this country in terms of justice for his son is partially going to be determined on this guy's testimony. That's really where it goes badly for victims' family members is, as human beings, we have all sorts of drawbacks, faults, shortcomings. And boy, do they get exploited in court. or, I'm not sure exactly why he doesn't want to admit that what he was selling it's essentially a fraud, right? Any fraud is making something look like something it's not. So these pills were a fraud, right? He was charging oxycodone prices and selling a very cheap, illicitly produced pill made to look like a prescription pill. End of story. I would be surprised if the jury doesn't fight over this. There's not going to be some discussions over this issue, but he will swear up and down that he didn't sell fentanyl. The public was worried about fentanyl at this time, and he would have never sold fentanyl. Take a listen.
Sir, when the investigators asked you whether Carmen Lauber asked specifically for blues or fentanyl or oxy, how did you respond?
I said that she asked probably for blues, but at that time, Roxy's were blues. It wasn't like it was like the slang on the street was, when people bought Roxy's, they were buying blues. It was before, this influx of fentanyl and it also said that either so M30s, yeah, that's what the.
Just to be clear, not to get anyone confused about all the technical names that are being tossed around here. Roxycodone, blues, M30s, all the same pill. 30 milligram oxycodone pills. That's what that is. He's like, she was asking for oxycodone. That's what I was giving people because I would never give them fake. And he says he only sold drugs for 2 years. And he claims to be totally clean now. Why? He got a deal in this case. They didn't prosecute him. They could have. We've seen drug dealers prosecuted for deaths, overdose deaths, and Mac Millers, drug dealers, etc. But he still seems to want to give the middle finger to the state for some reason. Whether he can believe it or not, does he not want to admit he was duped? He was like, I paid premium prices for this very cheap product. I shouldn't have. I wasn't all that great a drug dealer. I'm glad I'm retired. That would have been more believable testimony. Or another way to go is, I really tried to avoid fentanyl, but I got had. Or there was nothing else. So as a user and a dealer, this was what was on the market. But if I told people it was fentanyl, they wouldn't want it. I don't know. Or they wouldn't want to pay the prices that I needed to keep my habit up and to keep my business going. I don't know. Anything closer to the truth than this nonsense would have been better.
The Roxy's were stamped with was M30s. That's a manufacturer stamp. It's not just a fentanyl thing.
You recall investigators then clarifying that very thing with you.
Sorry, I don't mean to stop this too much. There's just so much nonsense being put out that I feel like I need to stop it. He's saying that because it had the manufacturer stamp, it's like, I sold you a real Chanel bag. Didn't you see the logo? I sold you a real Gucci bag. I sold you a real Coach bag. Had the logo on it. Not a great argument either.
And it wasn't like she was asking for oxys and got M30s, right? Do you remember the investigators asking you for that clarification?
Well, oxys implies that they would have been Oxycontin to me. By M30s would be fentanyl, or not fentanyl, but Roxy's. At that time in 2022, in early 2022.
Well, I think that confusion is what the investigators were trying to clarify, weren't they?
I don't know what they were.
You recall the investigators asking you. It wasn't like she was asking for oxys and got M30s. Do you recall them asking you that?
I have read it, but I don't recall them asking me that, no.
But you know that they asked you that from having read the transcript, right?
Your Honor, asked and answered. He said he doesn't recall.
That is true. And if you would answer that question, please.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you know that investigation?
Right, Marianne Nizzo says, Roberta, if he lets it be known, people won't buy for him. So Marianne Nizzo saying he's not recovered, he's still using, and he's still dealing. He's got to keep his street rep. I think that's your argument, Marianne. Absolutely considered that, Marianne. But what, I mean, I will spare you. And when the defense, I will spare you guys this back and forth that goes on forever, arguing over oxycodone and oxycontin and fentanyl. And it just goes on, that he swears up and down that he would never sell fentanyl. And the defense really used this. And then when it came time for the charge conference, let's take a look at that. Look at what the defense wants to clear up. Exactly this issue. Take a listen.
You know where I'm going with this. So there is testimony that has come in, or evidence, either testimony or documentary, that could let a jury find that Ms. Richins purchased oxycodone thinking it was oxycodone, and it was actually a fake oxycodone that neither she nor Mr. Richins were aware had fentanyl in it. My concern is if the jury thinks that under that circumstance, it would be aggravated murder, which it would not. It would be a different offense, which is not charged here. It could be a lesser included offense. So I don't know how to carve out. It's my reading of this statute and the information that in order to convict Kouri Richins of aggravated murder, which is this count, they have to believe that she knowingly and intentionally caused his death. If a jury is confused about whether knowingly and intentionally causing someone's death means buying something you think is oxy, giving it to someone and it's actually fentanyl and they die, that's a problem.
Well, pause for a minute. Let me ask you some.
Okay, here's the problem with that. How do they think a guy who everyone says doesn't use drugs, including Kouri Richins, how are they going to believe that he all of a sudden started using drugs, these kind of drugs, some of the strongest kind of most feared drugs in the country? And I'm talking about oxycodone or fentanyl, either one. They're all of a family of opiates that people really fear. Is that a big distance? I mean, the defense has hammered home this pot gummy use over and over and over again throughout the trial. But I think everybody would agree, and it's the reason why we don't have oxycodone and fentanyl legal in almost, I don't know, what is it, 23 states, something like that, the way we do marijuana, THC, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, pot is legal in so many different states, but not one state is. I mean, it could be, I think, wasn't Oregon, one part of Oregon, all drugs are decriminalized for a little bit, and I think they just reversed that because it's very dangerous and people die. So they're going to say he just took it himself? Are people really going to argue that in the jury deliberations? Really? But this is the best thing the defense has. And I would say, if I'm making predictions for tomorrow, count on the defense to hammer home Robert Crozier's testimony and hammer home this idea that Robert Crozier said he didn't sell fentanyl. And if he didn't sell it, then Carmen Lauber couldn't have bought it for Kouri Richins. And look at Carmen Lauber, she's a liar. But here's the problem. I mean, they're going to, I'll show you a little bit more of this argument, and then we'll go into opening statements and see how the state put together a argument. Really, it was meant to be an opening statement, which is more like just a preview for what you're going to see in the trial. But really, it's an argument for motive, means, and opportunity. Only Kouri Richins had the motive. Only Kouri Richins had the means and the opportunity. She had the connections to fentanyl. Eric Richins had no connections to drugs. They had a private investigator looking into, if you saw my show from last night, looking into Mexican cartels and Eric Richins. Strangely, we didn't hear anything about Eric Richins and Mexican cartels. Guess they didn't find anything, you know? Excuse me, but I'm just getting so tired of this, like, nonsense that we're all to believe that we're in bizarro world where someone like Kouri Richins is just the unluckiest person in the world. And I see the gaslighting on other channels just as I'm scrolling through, just by the titles alone, saying, it's a real iffy case. I'm not so sure. I think it's pretty overwhelming.
Legal questions.
Right.
So I acknowledge that I think you tell me.
Okay.
I'm learning about this in researching these instructions and seeing your proposed language.
Right.
Assisted suicide manslaughter is a crime with specific elements in the state of Utah, right?
Right.
Under 76-5205.
Right.
If, for example, a defendant in a murder case wanted to request a lesser included offense based on this factual theory, they would have a basis to do so because that lesser included exists.
Correct.
That's not the same as saying, though, the state has to disprove that alternative beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not an affirmative defense.
Right.
I agree with that.
So I don't think I have to include that language in the elements. The real question is whether you're asking for a lesser included, or I mean, you could certainly argue to the jury some factual inference that, listen, there's an inference to be drawn here that she got this stuff for him because he wanted it.
Yeah.
You know, that line of reasoning or doubt.
So,
which is funny because then you have to Kouri Richins' own words. I mean, who's going to back up that Eric Richins wanted these drugs? Only Kouri Richins, and she's gotten caught in more lies over and over again than the defense cares to admit. So let's look at how the problem they have is really with the body cam and Kouri Richins' own words right here. I mean, the defense says, well, Kouri Richins has never changed what she said happened that night. Well, she sure has changed her tune as to whether Eric Richins might have had a drug problem, because that seems to be the whole crux of the defense's case. Here's police at the scene of Eric Richins' death talking about what Kouri Richins told them. Take a look.
So basically she said we went to bed at 9:30. She slept with the kids because she goes to bed when she went to bed. Got around 3 o'clock. Moved into her bed. He was cold and heavy. He has Lyme disease. He got an allergy shot yesterday. He might have taken a gummy. THC gummy last night. So, other than that, just lines to these. I already have dispatch. I mean, it's just probably gonna be bigger. I don't know. Probably don't call this.
And the jury did not hear about Kouri Richins' mother, Lisa Darden. Her lesbian lover, Trudy, in 2006, died of an overdose, and Lisa Darden, Kouri Richins' mom, benefited financially from that death. The difference in that death, which was ruled an accidental overdose, was that Trudy struggled with opiate addiction. But Detective O'Driscoll says that makes it even more curious because there weren't any other drugs found in her system. Trudy would have had tolerance to those drugs. It makes it more concerning that she accidentally overdosed. Usually those kind of overdoses, it's a combination of drugs like benzodiazepines and opiates, or alcohol and opiates, that makes it so deadly. In that case, it was just a straight opiate overdose.
Did you talk someone to come here?
You want kid 32? What's my case number? Copy. Yeah, for and the complaint's going to be the wife, first name of Kouri.
Someone said to be found Wendy Adelson. It's the whining. It's the nonstop. It's like horrible background music of Kouri Richins whining in the background. Let me move forward a little bit.
I can't tell.
You need to lost the sound.
Scott, pause there for a minute. Thank you. 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's like, there's a lot of blood for some unknown reason.
Were you first on thing?
We were second. The fire guy was here before us.
And there was blood before they get...
A little bit coming out as soon as we start doing compressions with the Lucas. It's when the blood came out. So,
Okay.
I don't know.
No pulse or anything?
No, he was cold. I think he been down a while. Not a long time, but he's been down a minute. He was asleep the whole time, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, pretty young.
Yeah.
Maybe took some gummies.
Yeah.
Maybe took some gummies. Oh, that's what Kouri Richins was hoping on.
That's what she said. And then the hydrocodone. I think there was hydrocodone or something. 96 or something.
2016.
2016, yeah. Pretty old.
Do you take that?
Yeah, they were saying like that's pretty old. They're like pretty young. They're all their spidey senses are going off. Pretty young. Been dead a while. A lot of blood coming up from the nose. He'd been dead not forever, but for some time. And then this hydrocodone bottle from 2016. It's 2022 now. Really?
Yeah.
She was praying that hydrocodone bottle would get her out of it. So here's where they start asking her about Eric Richins' habits. Take a listen.
I'm going to need to ask you some questions real quick, okay? Has he ever been in the military?
No.
No. Does he use tobacco?
No.
No. And what does he do for a living?
He owns a stone mason company.
And then when you discovered him, was he on the bed? Yes.
He was just laying on his side like normal. I just thought he was cold. It was cold in there, so I put the blanket on him.
Yeah.
But his body just felt like heavy,
And which way was he facing? Was he facing towards?
No, he was just up, just facing up.
Oh, so he's laying on his back.
Facing on his
Okay.
back.
Wait, didn't she just say he was laying on his side? Didn't she just say he was laying on his side? Didn't she just say he was laying on his side, now he's on his back?
Laying on his side like normal.
He was laying on his side like normal, and now he's laying on his back. Okay. Which way was he facing?
Oh, he was just up, just facing up.
Oh, so he's laying on his back.
Facing on his
Okay.
back.
What? A little contradiction there.
And then did you pull him to the ground?
Yeah, that's what the lady on the phone told me to do,
Okay.
was to take the sheet and pull the sheet
Okay.
to the ground so I could do CPR.
Okay. What's his highest level of education?
It's a bachelor's degree.
Okay. Any,
My husband's active. He didn't just die in his sleep. This is insane.
Right? It's like a psychopath. What a psychopath thinks someone in mourning is going to say, but they wouldn't say it's insane. You'd say, I'm in a nightmare. But insane suggests something else. Suggests it's unbelievable and slightly ridiculous.
any mental health conditions? No. Okay. How about any suicidal
No,
history? No.
Never.
Okay.
No.
So there, Kouri Richins rules out a possible defense that Eric Richins got these pills to end it all, or took them herself. And then they're going to ask her if he took drugs, and she's going to say, no, he took them in high school, but not now.
Has he been seen by a doctor in the last 30 days?
No.
Okay. Has any prescriptions been filled in the last 30 days? No.
I mean, wouldn't this be the time that if you celebrated with these kind of drugs, if Kouri Richins brought these home and Eric Richins willingly took them, wouldn't this be the time to say, wouldn't you be shouting it to paramedics so they could give him some Narcan, which they did anyway, but it's too late. Meaning Narcan, meaning like an opiate blocker that would have reversed the effects of the opiates had he been just going into an overdose.
Has he had a history of falling or anything? No. Any history of prescription abuse? No.
I mean, when he was in high school and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Pain pills, I think.
Right. That's Kouri Richins says that. And Cody Wright heard that, but who knows? That may have been started by Kouri Richins. Certainly prepared an awful lot. Let's look at opening statements. Here's how the after going through all the fraud charges, We're just going to concentrate on the murder charges today. Here's where they start talking, where Prosecutor Bloodworth starts talking about Kouri Richins' involvement in the attempted murder and murder charges. Take a listen.
Now, for Kouri Richins' fresh start at life motive. This motive overlaps with her money motive. She needed Eric Richins' money to get her fresh start at life. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins was chronically unhappy in her marriage.
If I were the defense, my argument would be $7.5 million in debt. The estate wasn't worth that much. She still wouldn't have had a fresh start. She'd still be clawing her way out of debt.
She thought that having children would make her happier, but it did not. She consulted with a divorce attorney in the months leading up to Eric's death. 3 months before Eric's death, Kouri Richins booked a $4,000, 5-night, all-inclusive vacation for her and her boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, at the Secrets St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean. They were to check in the month after Eric died. Three weeks before Eric's death, 15 days before Eric's death, 1 day before the charge, attempted murder, Kouri Richins text message Josh Grossman, "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you. Watch a murder documentary and snuggle."
I mean, what murder documentaries, quote unquote, was she watching? Was she watching advocacy pieces for convicted killers, like Making a Murderer? I mean, what made her think that she didn't seem to learn how to become criminally sophisticated for many of these murder documentaries, quote unquote? Maybe they gave her a false sense of how much evidence you need. Or maybe it's a real sense. Maybe she'll get acquitted. Who knows? But if she gets acquitted, it will be because they did not process this scene like a murder scene. The lead detective at the time, who's now a dog handler, didn't think they had enough evidence for probable cause. The glasses were never taken. I mean, the scene was never roped off. But I think it's really unlikely. We're talking about the people who came into the scene: Katie Richins, Gene Richins, Eric's father. Katie Richins or Katie Benson, Katie Richins Benson, or Eric's sister, who ran in and got the kids out immediately, something that Kouri never did. She could never talk to Eric's parents or her children and tell them that Eric was dead. Prosecutor brings this up in this opening as evidence of consciousness of guilt.
"5 days after the charged attempted murder and 11 days before the charged murder, Kouri Richins text messaged Josh Grossman, 'Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If he could just go away. And you could just be here. Life would be so perfect. I love you. I don't know what my deal is today. I'm sorry.'"
And that's evidence that we heard again and again, testimony that Kouri Richins was unhappy in the marriage, that she was telling everyone that she'd be so much better off if she weren't married to Eric Richins.
9 days after the charged attempted murder, 1 week before the charged murder, Kouri Richins text messaged her boyfriend, "I have a crazy dream. You quit your job, I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road, maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. And we will just run the event center as our daily job and hang out every day, raise some kids, have a little farm, deal?" Just over 2 weeks after.
So one of the things the defense says in their opening is that what's not in dispute is how much Kouri Richins loved her kids. But I think that is in dispute. They put it together. They said Eric and Kouri, but I'm just talking about Kouri Richins. I think I would put that in dispute. If she did what she said she's accused of doing, which I think she did, no one who loves their kids would murder the father of their kids and permanently create trauma, emotional pain that they'll never get over. So, yeah, I put that in dispute.
After Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins text messaged her boyfriend a link to the secret St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean and asked, "Are we there yet?" 1 month and 5 days after Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins texted, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Now for the attempted murder charge. Carmen Lauber was a house cleaner who worked for Kouri Richins' aunt's house cleaning company. She cleaned Kouri Richins' house. She knew Kouri Richins for nearly 9 years. Kouri Richins knew that Carmen Lauber had a criminal history involving drugs.
We had a listener in here in the chat the other day who worked for that aunt's cleaning service. I believe that's what she was talking about. Said that everyone who was employed was an addict. It's Lisa Darden's sister who runs it.
The evidence will prove that on February the 11th, 2022, 3 days before the charged attempted murder, Carmen Lauber, at Kouri Richins' request, purchased illicit pain or illicit pills from a street drug dealer who was a friend of a friend. And she gave those pills to Kouri Richins. That street dealer's name is Robert Crozier, and he sold Carmen Lauber the pills at a draper in Maverick. 3 days later, on Valentine's Day, Kouri Richins purchased a sandwich from the Mirror Lake Diner and left it for Eric Richins. She then departed Camas and met up with Josh Grossman an hour away. At 11:33 that morning, Eric texted Kouri Richins, "I'm gonna lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm gonna head to the hospital soon." Shortly thereafter, all activity on Eric's cell phone ceased for nearly 90 minutes in the middle of a busy workday. Once activity resumed, Eric Richins called his 2 best friends. They sounded to him scared, somber, confused, bewildered. A few days after that, Kouri Richins asked Carmen Lauber if she could get something stronger.
Right. There's a little factoid that's never been explained. And that's very damning for Kouri Richins. Why is Kouri Richins, who says she doesn't use these drugs, why was she looking for something stronger? I'd love to hear the conversation around the jury table, deliberations around that fact. Can I get something stronger? Why? Why would you need something stronger if you have two opiate naive people? If you're just getting it for yourself to party.
The evidence will prove that on February the 26th, 5 or 6 days before Eric's death, Carmen Lauber, again at Kouri Richins' request, purchased pills from the same street dealer at the same Maverick in Draper. And she left those pills.
So the Maverick is like a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven. Some of them have gas stations connected to them. Some don't, I believe.
At a home that Kouri Richins was just finishing up a rehab on. The evidence will prove that those illicit pills contained fentanyl. The autopsy and toxicology report shows that Eric Richins died of fentanyl poisoning. He had several times a lethal amount of fentanyl in his blood and more in his stomach. And that extraordinary amount of fentanyl was intentional, not accidental. The evidence will prove that time and again, Kouri Richins tried to cover up her attempted murder and ultimate murder of Eric Richins. When confronted with Eric's reaction on Valentine's Day, Kouri Richins text messaged her friend. It was Valentine's Day, and Eric and I were both working from home that day.
Right. And we also heard the phone call where they're mocking the state's theory, which was 100% true, that she left the sandwich for Eric. She's like, no, we all ate it together. She's talking to her mom on the phone, maybe possibly her brother. Does anybody remember that call? I played it the other night. It's the cover-up that's the problem. It's the walk the dog letter. I mean, if that doesn't convince you, what the heck is she doing? Scripting perjured testimony for her brother. She wants her brother to swear to everything that she's saying, that she couldn't possibly know, to a conversation that she said she never heard between Eric and Ronnie. It's not like, remember the conversation you told me about? If she was smart, she would have written it like that. Tell Ronnie to tell my lawyer about the conversation he had with Eric and then explain what you want him to say. But the way she wrote it, she was clear. The walk the dog clearly means, to me, the way I interpret it, is burn after reading. Get rid of this. This is damning, incriminating evidence against me. Get rid of this. Walk the dog. Burn after reading. So here's Prosecutor Bloodworth making the argument that the cover-up is so important to look at the means, opportunity, motive. And he goes on to say that you can conclude that Eric Richins didn't kill himself and that nobody else killed him. The only one that could have done it is Kouri Richins. Like, process of elimination.
And I ordered lunch from Mirror Lake. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was fucking with him. Bailey was there too. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to nap. No hives, no EpiPen. Kouri Richins was an hour away from Eric Richins with her boyfriend. Regarding the morning of Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about the morning of Eric Richins' death. Why Kouri Richins' story makes no sense. Stick with me. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in one quick minute.
And now a word from today's sponsor. Shelley Levisay never imagined she'd become a statistic. As a prosecutor, she fought for domestic violence victims. As a Christian and a professional, she believed in second chances and the power of love. But when she met Matthew, a veteran with PTSD and a violent past, her compassion became her weakness. He manipulated her, abused her, and nearly destroyed everything she'd worked for. Love Isn't Always the Answer is more than a memoir. It's a wake-up call. Shelley's story reveals the insidious nature of narcissistic abuse and the courage it takes to reclaim your life. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship, or if you know someone who has, this book is for you. Start reading today and discover a story of survival, redemption, and hope. The link is in this episode's description. Read Love Isn't Always the Answer, a memoir written by defense attorney Shelley Levasseur. Available in Kindle, audiobook, or paperback.
Okay, we're back. Morning of Eric Richins' death. Prosecutor's opening statement. Here's Prosecutor Bloodworth talking about the morning of Eric Richins' death. Take a listen.
Wrote in a notebook that she entered their room at 3:20 a.m. She saw that when she nudged Eric, nothing happened. She grabbed her phone and called 911. She first grabbed her phone at least 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 at least 15 minutes. The evidence will also prove that Kouri Richins had a guilty conscience. The morning that Eric died, his family came over. Kouri Richins could not face her children or Eric's dad, Eric Richins. She didn't speak to him. A few days after Eric's death, Kouri Richins and her boyfriend, Josh, they drove into the Uintas and talked about Eric's death for the first time. Kouri Richins asked Josh, while serving in Iraq, did you ever kill anyone? When he responded, she asked, how did that make you feel? Along the lines of both cover up and guilty conscience, Kouri Richins' text messages and other data from Kouri Richins' phone for the 2 months leading up to Eric Richins' death and a week or two after have all been deleted. Police seized that phone. She got a new phone. And on that new phone, there were the following internet searches.
Get ready for some damning internet searches. Here's what not to search if you think you're going to be a suspect in murder. Things like this.
Can cops uncover deleted messages iPhone? Can you delete everything off an old iPhone without actually having it? Can deleted text messages be retrieved from an iPhone? How to completely wipe an iPhone clear remotely. How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely. On April the 13th, 2022, about 5 weeks after Eric Richins' death, detectives informed Kouri Richins that the autopsy and toxicology results show that Eric died of fentanyl poisoning. Thereafter, searches on her phone include if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Women, Utah prison, luxury prisons for the rich.
Luxury prisons for the rich. I hope I'm not going to be forced to take a lie detector test because I think I'll fail one. How do you remotely delete everything from the phone that the police have? And maybe possibly this phone, if they take this one too. If your husband is poisoned, if you poisoned your husband, what's going to be on the death certificate? And we heard her reaction, her friend's reaction, her friend Chelsea Barney's reaction, who took the stand. She was like, what's wrong with these law enforcement officials? I know you could never do this. Not Kouri Richins. Kouri Richins just angry that she has to pay the $100,000 retainer for Sky Lazaro, her high-powered lawyer. But her friend's really, Chelsea is really mad. Like, what? This is ridiculous. Spitting mad. But not Kouri Richins, which is what I've been talking about, is the natural reaction when you're falsely accused, is to be angry. And I wouldn't say that's even on a spectrum of normalcy. I'd say that's expected. That's the expected emotion when you're falsely accused and hassled over something that you didn't do and have to spend $100,000 of money you don't have to defend yourself on a false accusation. You're pissed, not Kouri Richins. She calls these people bastards. We'll get the bastards. I'm going to beat this, or I'm going to win. But like I said before, if you're falsely accused of something, there is no winning. The truth can only come out, right? You can't win. You've already lost. After the false accusation, you've already lost. You lost time. You've lost money. You've lost peace of mind.
In America. Almost a year after Eric Richins' death, when Kouri Richins knew the police were investigating her for his death, Kouri Richins published a children's book on how to deal with the loss of a parent. And she promoted that children's book on local television and local radio. The state will present to you this evidence and more through a series of fact witnesses, expert witnesses, documents, and Kouri Richins' own words. As you evaluate.
Right. Kouri Richins' own words being one of the most important, damning pieces of evidence in this whole trial. Her own searches, her own behavior, her contradictory statements. He was on his side. He was on his back. What was written in the notebook found by her bedside, that she was wrapped around the toilet vomiting. She was so upset. We never saw any of that on the body cam.
The evidence and you consider it and you weigh it. Let me offer 4 recommendations. The first is the evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric Richins, but also consider the evidence that proves that Eric Richins did not kill himself or die accidentally. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins had the means, motive, and opportunity to murder Eric Richins. But please consider the evidence that proves no one else did. Consider the evidence leading up to Eric Richins' death that proves that Kouri Richins murdered him, but also consider the evidence after Eric's death that also proves it.
Right, like the walk the dog letter. They didn't mention the walk the dog letter. They waited. That was like one of the last things they presented to the jury. It's not just the crime, it's her cover-up. Cover-up will always get you. Now, quite a different presentation by the defense. We want you to believe that Eric was thrilled about swampland house, this $2.2 million unfinished mini mansion built on swampland that the army, can come and do testing on the swampland anytime they want. I mean, that's where she was going to make her fortune. She was writing her lover, Josh Grossman, that they were going to rent it out for $15,000 like they do down the road and live in the guest house. Here's Kathy Nestor talking about the great relationship that they had together.
Their marriage had survived through some rough times, and you're going to hear about that. Like any marriage, it wasn't a perfect marriage. They'd gone through a really bad year where they both contemplated divorce, and they did what a lot of couples do. They went to marriage counseling, they worked it out, and they decided to stick it out, and they did. You're going to hear testimony from one of Eric's closest friends that in the few weeks before Eric died, he and Kouri were the happiest together that he'd ever seen them. And you're going to hear that from one of Eric's closest friends. Now, on March 3rd, Eric started
There's testimony we never heard.
sending excited texts before their celebration to Kouri, saying, hey, let's get together. Let's have some celebratory shots. Slide 7, please. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys aren't going to be able to read that. It's
So Kouri Richins claims they were celebrating the Swampland house. I have my doubts.
really small, but it basically says, you want to, thank you. You want to grab lunch today with a celebratory shot? That was Kouri saying she can't, that she has other plans, but he's excited. He wants to celebrate about the big closing. When Eric got home the evening of March 3rd, after he'd been out at the property spreading the gravel, he got home and they all had dinner together as a family. Kouri's mom dropped by. They visited with her mom. Her mom had actually been out at the property the same day with a carpenter trying to get some bids and get it ready to start getting it fixed up. Kouri's mom left. They tucked their boys into bed. And around 9 o'clock, they decided to have their celebratory shot. A friend had given them a gift of some of those, I'm sure you guys have seen them, those copper Moscow Mule cups that you make like in breweries and in bars. And they decided to try out their new cups. So Kouri made what's called a Moscow Mule. And they also had a little shot, which is Eric's idea, of a little lemon drop.
Kouri says it was Eric's idea. We have an unreliable narrator here.
They had their drinks. They actually didn't finish them and set the cups in the sink at the house right there. Around 9:30, they were getting ready to go to bed, and they heard one of the children who suffered from something called night terrors, where they scream out, they have nightmares. One of the children was crying out. So Kouri went to sleep with her son around 9:30 that night. You're going to hear the police. Kouri also told the police the day that they came to the house that she believed Eric might have had what we call a marijuana gummy. You're going to hear Eric loved marijuana gummies. He used them a lot. And the police found a whole bunch of them in the house, in his things, in his clothes, in his closet. You know, he was a marijuana gummy user. Slide 8. These are all gummies that the police found in Eric's things. Some of them, you can tell, had commercial bags where he bought them from dispensaries. Some were in clear bags that he bought from somewhere else, the location unknown. So you take it down. So as they're getting ready to go to bed, you're going to hear that after Kouri left the room, Eric was on his phone, and he was talking to a friend named Scott Wagner. And you're going to hear that Scott Wagner talked to him at 10 o'clock that night. That when Scott Wagner talked to him, he did not sound drunk. He did not sound high. He did not sound like he was on fentanyl or anything else. That there was no.
Was he screaming mad, like Kouri Richins said? And was he screaming at some unknown people on the internet to get his horns back from Mexico? Doesn't sound like it. Did the Scott Wagner ever testify? I don't believe he did. It's another promise by the defense not fulfilled. This is a defense tactic where they make a lot of promises that they don't fulfill, and they're
No sound of the wife or children in the background, that he was alert, that he was having a totally normal conversation with Scott, and this was at 10 p.m. Shortly after 10 p.m., you're going to hear, forgot to mention, when Kouri left the bedroom, she has always maintained from beginning to end that she left her phone in the room, in the charger next to her bed, which we all do at night when we're about to go to bed, we charge our phones. Nothing unusual there.
But now they're going to say Eric turned on her phone at 10.
after 10 o'clock, around 10:30, so this is an hour after Kouri's left the bedroom and is in with her son, Kouri's phone is unlocked and moves just a few feet. Now you're going to hear Kouri's friends in this trial and some other people testify that Eric was always checking Kouri's phone. And you can kind of see why he probably was doing that. Based on what you've already heard from the state. Maybe he had good reasons, but he checked her phone a lot. So we know he did that at about 10:30 because we have proof that the phone opened and closed. Moved a short distance, like maybe walking around the bedroom, and then closed again. And that is the last thing we know for sure that Eric did the night that he died. Sometime after that, we don't know exactly when Eric died. Slide 9. When Eric died, his Apple Watch was hanging on a charger, nice and neat. His phone was in a charger on the nightstand. He was lying in his underwear, like when you go to bed. And he was on his back on his side of the bed. So it appears pretty clear that Eric went to bed and fell asleep and died in his sleep. You're all.
So did they say that like he was on his side? Meaning like he was on his side of the bed. When she said he was on his side, she meant his side of the bed, not on his side. She clearly said he was found on his back. That's what she meant when they said his side. I bet that's what that was about. Little.
Also going to hear, slide 10, that there was an empty pill bottle right next to him in his nightstand. And I want you to pay careful attention.
That Kouri Richins made sure she put there. She made sure she emptied out the pills and put them somewhere else.
To this. The empty pill bottle expired in 2016. Made out to him for pain pills. That's going to become important later.
I believe hydrocodone, isn't that? And Tylenol, isn't that Vicodin?
Sometime after 3 a.m., Kouri wakes up and comes back into a dark bedroom. You're going to hear she unlocked her phone. Probably, we're not going to dispute the times that the state just mentioned. The phone gets unlocked shortly after 3 a.m., which is what time Kouri says from day one that she got up. She always tells the police, I got up at 3. The phone verifies that. The phone moved around the house a little bit. You're going to hear the distances in the house. There's going to be investigators that are going to tell you.
The phone got up at 3. We don't know about Kouri Richins. I mean, so many things were taken. She could have been on her laptop. She could be doing other things.
How many feet from the master bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen. They're going to tell you about how many feet are in that house if you're walking around the house. It appears clear she walked around the house just a little bit for a few minutes. And then the phone stops being active, which is indicative of being back in the charger, indicative of not moving anymore. And a few minutes later, you hear the 911 call that you guys just heard. So that gives her enough time to crawl into the bed, touch her husband, and realize he's cold. Just about 3 minutes. That's all it took. And she picks her phone up.
And she writes in her notebook, and you could call it a diary, whatever, her explanation in her own handwriting of what happened that night and that morning that Eric Richins, before and after he was found deceased, is that I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. What did she just say? I know it was something about what she just said. Hold on 1 second. Let's go back 2 seconds and I'll tell you.
And a few minutes later, you hear the 911 call that you guys just heard. So that gives her enough time to crawl into the bed, touch her head.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy Nestor, she says it's my bed. I crawled into my bed, not our bed, not the marital bed that we shared. My bed. Very telling.
And realize he's cold. Just about 3 minutes. That's all it took. And she picks her phone up, calls 911. You're going to see that the phone records prove all of this. At that time, I believe everyone's going to agree, and I think the state even admitted it in their opening, it's pretty clear he'd been dead for several hours. And you're going to actually see a photo when we pass, our blood pools in the position that we lay in. It's not circulating anymore because our heart's not working. And you're going to see a picture of his back. And you're going to see that the blood, he had been dead long enough for the blood to pool on his back because he was laying on his back. So that usually indicates he'd been dead for several hours, and the medical examiner is going to tell you that. So those 6.
So he was on his back, but she said he was on his side. So that'll give you an idea of where they're going. You can't prove it. Our client has never changed their story. You can't put the actual pills in her hand. We don't know what those pills were that she was buying, really. The drug dealer says they were oxycodone. The state says all this fentanyl was found. If the drug dealer didn't sell Carmen Lauber fentanyl, because he said he didn't, then she couldn't have gotten it that way. Then it came some other route into the house. I mean, in her diary, she even maintains, I believe that's in the diary, that Eugene Richins sounded strange, sounded suspicious. Like he knew when she called and said something was wrong with Eric, like he knew, like it was the Richins family that murdered their own flesh and blood. I mean, come on. Well, that's what I would expect more from the state tomorrow in closing arguments. Tighter, better, more motive, and more talk of a cover-up for the defense. I think they're really going to hammer home this same point I just mentioned. You can't put the drugs in her hand. They can't even say how he was murdered. There was no murder weapon found. I love what the detective said. Well, there was a lot of fentanyl found in Eric Richins' stomach. And they're going to try to exaggerate reasonable doubt and the burden of the state to make it beyond any doubt, that you have to be absolutely certain without beyond any doubt at all, right? Things you just couldn't know. I keep asking people who have doubts in this case what evidence they would like to see that they haven't seen. There are some things. It was a terrible investigation originally before Jeff O'Driscoll came on board, I would say. I'll see you tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for closing arguments. We'll start early and hang out for a little bit before it starts. And please support the channel. Venmo, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, all great ways to support the channel. Links in the description of this and every episode. Have a great Sunday night. I'll see you tomorrow morning, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for listening and watching with me.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing, she's the anti-fraud light. Hard task warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy. Exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing, she's the anti-fraud light.